Hey everyone, welcome back to another video, and thank you for your patience over the last few months. Unfortunately, we just had to recently change Wi-Fi providers, and so editing unfortunately had not been an option for me. But I've seen about 5 movies in this course of time, and so I thought I'd bring them all in this one big catch-up video review. And so the first one I want to talk about is Abigail. This was one of my more anticipated movies of the year, particularly in the horror genre. So this is about a young girl named Abigail, played by Alicia Ware, who was supposedly kidnapped by this group of criminals, and they have to keep her protected in this mansion for 24 hours. But once they realize that she is a vampire who lured them there, they have to try and escape without them all getting killed. So one of the big positives I have to give to this movie are the people behind the practical effects. The fake blood in here is just so well done and makes it look so real. And that's a thing that I really like to see in horror films, is fake blood looking so good it actually makes it look real. And there are times in horror movies where it can work. There are times when it absolutely sucks, and here it absolutely nailed it. Alicia Ware as Abigail, I mean, honestly, she needs to win an Oscar. She just was amazing as Abigail. She's just starting out in her acting career, and man, for her to nail this performance as this scary ass vampire girl who is going around killing these bunch of people. Honestly, I'm serious. Give her an Oscar. As far as a negative, and this is just a minor nitpick personally for me, is I wish there was more variety within the kills. I know I said earlier that the practical effects was a major positive in the way the kills look, but as far as variety of kills, that's where it lacked. But overall, Abigail is definitely up there as one of my favorite movies of the year. There is no doubt this is going to be in my top 10 films of the year. This might even list as my favorite horror film of the year, which would be amazing. So I'm going to give Abigail an A. Moving on, we're going to review a little movie called Thelma. This is about an elderly grandma named Thelma who was unfortunately scammed out of $10,000 through a phone scam from someone pretending to be her grandson. And after her family refused to help her, she decides, fuck it, I'm going to go on a road trip and get this money back. June Squibb as Thelma was amazing. I mean, for this actress to be 94 years old and being in her first major acting role at this age is amazing, because a lot of us get past our 20s or our 30s and think, okay, there is no way we can get to the top league. For her to be able to do this at her age was pure amazement. One of the funniest things that made me laugh out so much was at the beginning of the film, where she's watching Mission Impossible with her grandson. And that's where she gets her inspiration for action from watching Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible. I am not kidding. The clever elements here of how they do action scenes for someone so old is actually really cleverly done. Like, for example, when she is trying to go into the computer to get the money back, and all these pop-ups are popping up, and she's talking to her grandson. He's like, no, you got to be careful, you got to try and find the X, but they hide it sometimes. And just those clever elements like that made the movie really work. And it has some heartfelt moments as well. Honestly, guys, if you have not seen Thelma, I highly recommend that you watch it, support it. I'm going to give it a B+. Next up, we're going to talk about Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice, now unfortunately, because of my Wi-Fi issues that I had, I was not able to watch the original film. But this obviously brings back Michael Keaton, Winona Ryder, Catherine O'Hara, and then a new addition with Jenna Ortega. And basically, this one, Lydia, played once again by Winona Ryder, is still experiencing nightmares from Beetlejuice, played by Michael Keaton. But then her daughter, Astrid, played by Jenna Ortega, meets this boy named Jeremy who tries to take her into the afterworld, and so she has to reluctantly team up with Beetlejuice to try and stop it. So I always get a little bit worried when they release sequels years later, because that can sometimes be one of the biggest problems, is you're releasing a sequel years and years later and it absolutely can fail. And even though I haven't watched the original, I still think this is a pretty successful sequel to get released almost pretty practically 40 years later after the original movie. Michael Keaton as Beetlejuice is just so much fun, and I know he's a villain, so you're supposed to hate him, but I just fucking love him, and just particularly with the performance of Michael Keaton just is brilliant. And for him improvising a lot, is, I think to yourself, holy shit. Honestly, just go out and see Beetlejuice. I mean, if you've seen the original, you might like this one. Maybe not as much as the original, but it's still a fun time. So I'm going to give Beetlejuice a B-. And finally, we get to Harold and the Purple Crayon. So this stars Zachary Levi and is based off a 1950s kids book. And this basically, Harold, played by Zachary Levi, along with his friends Moose and Porcupine, stumble upon into the real world to try and find their creator. But when an evil author recognizes who they are, and he's also unsuccessful, he decides to try and steal their ideas so he can be successful on his own. So they have to team up with this family to take the villain down before all hell breaks loose. So I will say, I think creativity on paper, this could have worked. It does have some creative ideas. Sadly, they're not very well executed and fleshed out well. And honestly, it's just, I'm trying to think of much positive that I can say about this movie. But I knew this movie was going to be a piece of shit, and I was right. And I get that it's a kid's movie, but at least put a bit more creativity into it, And there is just nothing, literally nothing within this. I'm sorry, but this was one of those movies where I was just sitting there like, yes, and nothing happened at all. So I'm sorry, but Harold and the Purple Crayon gets a D-. I was going to give it an F, but as I said, on paper, it has some creative ideas. Unfortunately, it's just not very well executed. So guys, movies may be good, movies may be bad, but I review them anyways. Peace.